A few days ago, the Lebanese executive authorities signed a trilateral framework package to the public as a diplomatic victory. The media is calling it a ceasefire. I call it a documented, legally binding instrument of colonial submission. We are not here to debate opinion or listen to political talk shows. We are going to read the exact text of the document that the executive authorities signed. This is a point-by-point autopsy of how a state surrendered its sovereignty on paper. The agreement opens by stating that the government of Israel and the government of Lebanon, with the full support of the United States under President Donald J. Trump, affirmed their shared goal of achieving lasting peace and security. The two countries declared their ambition to end the conflict between them. The deception begins in the introduction by explicitly negotiating under the designation of the two countries on an isolated track brokered by Washington. The ruling clique has executed the default abandonment of the Arab Peace Initiative. They have bypassed the Ta'if Agreement, the very bedrock of the Lebanese constitution, which legally defines Israel as Lebanon's sole existential enemy. This framework operates completely outside of every historical agreed upon legal benchmark, bypassing both regional consensus and regional component. The first clause states, Israel and Lebanon hereby declare their intent to conclusively end the conflict. The framework reached after multiple rounds of negotiations builds up previous successful agreements. Both countries affirm their intention to resolve these issues as sovereign states through direct bilateral negotiation. Look closely at what is missing. There is no absolute mention of the foundational legal benchmark that Israel has systematically violated for decades. No reference to the 1949 agreement, UN Resolution 425, or UN Resolution 1701. Engaging in direct bilateral negotiation under foreign pressure violates the spirit of the Lebanese constitutional framework. Furthermore, this clause provides zero structural guarantees enforcing Israeli compliance. Lebanon gives up its defensive posture while Israel yields nothing. The second clause goes on to say, whereby the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, will restore effective sovereign authority over all Lebanese territory, pending the verified disarmament of non-state armed groups and dismantlement of associated infrastructure, enabling the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, to progressively redeploy out of Lebanese territory. Notice the phrase associated infrastructure. It is left intentionally broad and ill-defined. Tomorrow, the IDF can declare that this public school is an infrastructure, or this hospital is an infrastructure, or this residential home is a hostile infrastructure. Under the signed text, the Lebanese military is legally compelled to go in and sabotage its own civilian installation to satisfy the agreement. And what does Lebanon get in return? Not an Israeli withdrawal, but a conditional progressive redeployment. Here, the agreement isn't talking about withdrawal. It is talking about redeployment. So the Lebanese army has to do everything that the IDF orders it to do, yet they do not withdraw, yet the Israeli army does not withdraw from Lebanon. They merely redeploy. This is a collaborative proxy mechanism designed to secure foreign political interest, not the Lebanese land and not the Lebanese people. The third clause stipulates that the Lebanese armed forces will gradually assume full and effective security responsibility in pilot zones, which will serve as a mechanism for phased and verified redeployment of the Israeli army. Two initial zones have been agreed to. Let's expose the tactical lie. The initial pilot zones publicized by the media are sectors where IDF ground forces were never physically stationed. They are depopulated border areas completely subjugated to Israeli fire control. Presenting this as a withdrawal is an outright fabrication to deceive the public. More dangerously, this clause shifts the entire liability burden onto the local military. If a cross-border resistance operation occurs within these zones, Israel is legally authorized to void the commitments and blame the Lebanese armed forces for failing its security mandate. This is an impossible trap engineered to spark a domestic civil war. The fourth clause is a very dangerous clause. It states that the government of Lebanon will rebuild the state's monopoly on the use of force, achieve the complete verified dismantlement of all non-state armed groups. Here is where it gets dangerous. The government of Lebanon has here requested the support of international and particularly Arab partners under the leadership of the United States. Lebanon is bound to an absolute irreversible commitment in this clause, while Israeli pullbacks remain entirely vague and conditional. By formally requesting international and Arab military intervention under US command, the Lebanese government has legally invited foreign armies to deploy inside the country to fight its own citizens. This mirrored the catastrophic precedent of the Syrian Deterrence Force in 1976. This open-door policy provides legal cover for hostile extremist cross-border elements to enter Lebanon territory under the guise of enforcing disarmament of the resistant. This is what Trump was speaking about when he mentioned Syria as a better option for resolving the Hezbollah issue since Israel failed. Yet, the Lebanese government signed to this. The Lebanese authorities signed to this, that foreign fighters are going to enter Lebanon to kill Lebanese civilians. And then they talk to us about sovereignty. The Lebanese authorities talk to us about sovereignty, yet asking foreigners to come and kill Lebanese citizens. The fifth clause erases the history. It manipulates all the history since 1948 until this day. The government of Israel stresses that its military action in Lebanon are only the consequences of the attacks, threats posed by and hostile intent of non-state armed groups, particularly Hezbollah. This clause is pure historical treason, signed by Lebanese hands. It completely erases decades of unprovoked Israeli invasions, military occupations and campaigns, spanning from 1948 to 1952, 1956, 58, 76, 82, long before Hezbollah even existed. By validating this clause, the executive leadership has granted Israel a retroactive free pass, effectively declaring Israel the victim. We are the sole aggressors. They erased the blood of hundreds of thousands of Lebanese. I don't know who gave them the authority to do something like that, to erase the blood of hundreds of thousands of victims, hundreds of thousands of martyrs in Lebanon that were killed by Israel from 1948 until this day. I don't know who allowed them to erase the blood of the people who were martyred in the Qana massacre, in the Hula massacre, and not too long ago, approximately 3 months ago, Israel killed 310 Lebanese civilians in less than 10 minutes. I don't know who gave the Lebanese president and the Lebanese prime minister the authority to erase all their blood. The sixth clause reveals exactly what ghost monopoly means. And it states that the government of Lebanon rejects the claims of any state or non-state actor to use force on its behalf, and reaffirms that its security forces hold exclusive responsibility for Lebanon's security and defense. The assertion of an exclusive governmental monopoly on national defense is a complete fabrication. Throughout 15 months of supposed ceasefire, characterized by persistent border violation and the targeted killing of Lebanese civilians by Israeli forces, the executive and military leadership failed to provide even the most basic physical diplomatical protection. Currently, these authorities lack both the genuine willpower and the actual resources to safeguard the country and its citizens. As a result, this provision serves as nothing more than an empty legal instrument engineered solely to facilitate the disarmament of resistant groups while the nation's frontier remain defenseless and exposed. The seventh clause is the absolute contradiction. It states that nothing in this framework prevents them from exercising their inherent right to defend themselves, reaffirming that no third party may exercise the right on their behalf. Both governments commit to establishing a military coordination group with US support. This clause explicitly forbids any third party from exercising the right to defend on behalf of the population. Yet the fourth clause invites external Arab and international armed forces to intervene militarily within Lebanese territory. Furthermore, by prohibiting third-party defense, while the state actively refuses to deploy its military against incursions, the agreement legally strips individual citizens of the right to protect their own families and properties when Israeli forces breach their towns. For example, if somebody is living on a border town in Lebanon, and the Israelis decided to enter his house, if he has a kitchen knife, he is not allowed to defend himself because our government, the Lebanese authorities, signed a deal that the Lebanese people are not even allowed to defend themselves against any Israeli incursion in Lebanon. The eighth clause is whitewashing Israel's mentality and whitewashing how Israel believes and thinks and how they have been acting since 1948. And it states that the two countries affirm that they share the objective of a secure, rebuilt Lebanon under full Lebanese state sovereignty, in which no non-state armed groups possesses a threat to Israel, Lebanon, or citizens of either countries. Our government is telling us that we simply misunderstood our neighbor. This section attempts a deceptive sanitization of Israel's geopolitical image, casting an occupying power as an entity dedicated to a security and rebuilt Lebanon. It minimizes documented war crimes and the systematic forced displacement of an entire southern population as merely security understandings, even though Israeli ministers are openly talking about building settlements in Lebanon. Yet, our government still expects us to believe that they are good neighbors with our best interests at heart. Clauses 9 and 10 state that the government of Lebanon commits to a rigorous performance-based program. The government of Lebanon is committing to a rigorous performance-based program to enable the capacity of the Lebanese armed forces. The government of Lebanon welcomes the readiness of the United States to support such efforts. Separately and simultaneously, the United States will rally international partners to actively support the government of Lebanon in rebuilding Lebanon. The ninth clause is something crazy. Formally dismantles military sovereignty by subjugating the national armed forces to an external grading and reviewing system. So today the Lebanese army is going to do a test. And who grades the test? Israel and the United States. They tell the Lebanese army if they are doing a good job or they are not doing a good job. So basically, the Lebanese government is putting the Lebanese army under complete Israeli control. They decide everything. They give the Lebanese army the orders. And they will not withdraw if the Lebanese army didn't do a good job. It's a test. The Lebanese army is a test for the Israeli army. This is what our government signed. Or the Lebanese government will allow the United States or a private security firm contracted by the IDF to grade our Lebanese army, to decide whether our Lebanese army is doing a good job or no. This reduces the sovereign military to an externally audited security vendor. The 10th clause extends this subjugation to the economy, locking out the Lebanese state from directing its own post-war recovery and handing over strategic administrative control over reconstruction directly to Washington and Israel. In the 11th clause, they aren't even hiding it anymore. Check this out. The government of Lebanon commits to prevent reconstruction funds from flowing to non-state armed groups and connected entities. This is the financial weaponization of the agreement. This clause establishes an extensive profiling and surveillance system under the vague label of affiliation. Any civilian who tomorrow who votes in the upcoming election for the resistance will be declared as affiliating with the resistance, or anyone who had a family member historically engaged in defending their own towns against Israeli occupation can be legally blacklisted. So what is our government telling us here? That the Lebanese citizens will be banned from receiving reconstruction funds, blocked from employment, and systematically turned into social outcasts in their own country. The 12th clause is where they seal the deal. And it states that upon the signing of this framework, the two countries will work to establish working groups to draft a full comprehensive peace and security arrangement, facilitated by the United States. Here they are doubling down on the same bilateral trap from Clause 1. It's basically a roadmap to detaching our regional neighbors to play ball exclusively with Washington. All under the technical label, so you don't notice it's the fast lane to full normalization. In the 13th clause, the Lebanese authorities take surrender and treason into a whole different level. It states that Israel and Lebanon commit to take good faith measures and demonstrate positive intent, including the cessation of all hostile or adverse actions in international, political, or legal forms. This is a masterclass in legal self-sabotage. Our government just handed Israel a get-out-of-jail-free card, ditching our right to sue for war crimes, for the massacres, and for the damage that Israel did in South Lebanon. Also, kissing away $800 million in reparations that Israel owe Lebanon since the 2006 war, and Israel didn't even pay them. It's a total gag order. Even if bombs fall tomorrow on Lebanese citizens, the Lebanese government legally promised to stay silent, not to sue, not to take Israel to court, not to even go to the United Nations. Our government has signed a deal where the Lebanese citizens cannot sue Israel for the journalists they killed, for the people who work on the medical field, and for the citizens that they have deliberately attacked. Israel in this war have killed journalists on purpose and people who work in the medical field on purpose, and they have killed citizens on purpose. Our government has sabotaged the work of journalists and lawyers who are proving that Israel has committed war crimes in this war. As the Lebanese journalist and analyst Ghassan Saoud said, even a marriage contract lets you settle a future arguments. But our leadership prefers a total surrender, selling out the victims while holding the door open for the aggressors. This agreement ends with an ego rub for Donald Trump. And it states the two governments acknowledge the role of the United States and express their deep appreciation for the vision and leadership of President Donald J. Trump. This document really ends with the ultimate display of political bootlicking. The political leadership in Lebanon, and definitely the political leadership in Israel, knows how to handle Trump, smoothing him in praise because they know how much he loves having his ego stroked. It is a calculated, pathetic performance designed to buy favor through flattery. This isn't diplomacy. It is a hollow act meant to satisfy his vanity while highlighting our own total submission. This is what the executive authorities in Lebanon signed. This is far beyond a diplomatic compromise. It is the formalization of enslavement on paper. But as we will explore in our next video, documents signed in foreign capitals mean nothing if they cannot be enforced on the ground. Stay tuned. We're tearing apart the political fiction and fake math behind this deal. We'll also expose the political groups in Lebanon who support this agreement, pretending to be the majority when they clearly are not, and explain why this agreement is already dead on arrival.